All right, everybody. Greg Harrelson here. Abe Safa also with you. And we're doing another live on real estate sales solutions. And just wanted to, talk about, you see the title there, talk about your why and how it dictates your what. So, Abe, let's just jump right into it. And for those of you that are catching us live right now, we would love for you to chime in on the comments, ask questions. Feel free to challenge us. If you hear something and you've got a different point of view, please, or if you've got another idea, a tip that you think would be beneficial to us or the group, if you'll just go ahead and put it in the comment section, we'll monitor that and we'll address it to the best of our abilities. Abe, I think this is a conversation you and I have probably had many times, and we've probably went very deep in these conversations. As a matter of fact, we've even attended quite a few different trainings, whether it be Tony Robbins or other types of things that we've done to kind of like figure out what our why is and all these other things. But what is your thought? Like, what is the first thing that comes to your mind when you think of today's conversation?
Well, today's conversation, we get requests all the time, like how many contacts should I make in a day?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what activities should I be doing? And it's always, it's going to vary from agent to agent, because before you start even thinking about what you should be doing and how many calls you should make, you really should be thinking about, like, why am I making these calls? Like, what's driving me? So that's the first thing that comes to my mind is okay, what's driving you? What is your why? And that question gets thrown around in this industry a lot, like know your why and get really passionate about your why. And we don't have to take it that far. We don't have to get into philosophical meaning of why and what's your purpose and this and that. But we're talking in this context more specifically on, okay, what's going to drive you on a day-to-day basis of doing the work that needs to be done to accomplish the goals that you want. That's kind of like what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I get it. And I think for simplicity purposes, I think it's a lot easier to also look at it as like, what is something that you want? What is a goal that you have? And then because it all kind of starts with a goal, right? Like again, why can be a deep conversation, but like one of the things that you may want is you may want to be debt free. You may want. And one of the things that motivates you is to do a little bit more is maybe putting your child into college, getting them through college without having to have student debt would be like a strong motivator. Maybe paying off the car would be a strong motivator. If you think about the goals that we have, and the goals that we have that motivate us, we want to share with you, and Abe's got a cool little chart here. We want to share with you how you can kind of like take your goals and let your goals determine the activities that you must do consistently in order to achieve those goals. So we're gonna take it a little bit beyond. We're gonna say, okay, if your goal is that you want this. You want to save for your college education, and you need to have $80,000 in an educational fund in order to make sure that your child goes to college debt free. So whatever it is you want, assuming it's going to cost money, then we need to determine how much money it's going to cost. So $80,000. So once I know it's going to cost $80,000, then I can say, well, what is my average commission check? Let's just say, for instance, it was $8,000. If your average commission check is $8,000, then you would have to have 10 closings at $8,000 in order to pay for it. But the key is you have to have 10 closings above all the other amount of closings that it cost you to survive. Abe, I'm doing my best to kind of set this up. Now, can you go ahead and you take it wherever you want to go? But I was trying to do my best to set it up because I know what your chart looks like, and it's fantastic. So please, if you're watching, tune in. Do not leave. This is very, very important. Very important.
Yeah, Greg, I think that was a perfect setup. I mean,
Okay.
we're going to really simplify this of what the why is in this particular conversation. It's like, okay, what do you want? Right? So a lot of times, when we're not clear on what it is that we want, then we're not clear on what it's going to take to get what we want. So on a day-to-day basis, what that looks like is this. Okay, I go into the office and I'm making some calls and I don't feel good that day and I'm lazy, and all of a sudden I make 5-6 contacts and I call it a day. Okay, no big deal, right? Because you're not thinking about it. You're not thinking of the ramifications of what it ended up costing you. Okay, but when we talk about this chart and show you, I did this for my first 3 or 4 years in the business, and it was a really powerful motivator for me, especially in the first year where I was able to make 12,000 contacts and really have that drive every single day to come in and make the calls. When you're very clear on what it is that you want and what exactly it's going to take as far as activities on a daily basis to make it, you're going to realize that that's going to be that extra push that you're going to need to make that extra 5 more contacts. So I think you summarized it perfectly. So let me go ahead and bring up the chart, and then we'll just talk about it. And if you guys have any questions out there, please just bring them up. Mm-hmm. All right, so this is the chart here. So first of all, there's a couple of simple formulas here, right? This is not going to work if you don't have any sort of concept of how much income you made, how many contacts you made. Without those 2 numbers, it's not going to work. Okay, but you can estimate. Like if you're brand new in a business or you've never tracked your numbers, just estimate a number. Okay, and then all of a sudden start tracking your numbers on a day-to-day basis. And after you get about 90 days of tracking numbers, then you'll start having a good idea, okay, of how many contacts it takes to get an appointment, how many appointments it takes to get a listing, and then from there you could break it down. But let me show you real quick. Oops, hold on. So again, I'm using made up numbers here. So let's just say last year you made 8,000 contacts and made $150,000 in income. Okay. The formula breaks it down to, that means that every single person you talk to, regardless of what the outcome was, whether they bought, hung up on you, nothing ever happened. Every person you talk to, you made $19. That's a big number. That was a big number for me, Greg, early on, because I had all that resistance to making calls. And people were hanging up on me left, right, and center. When I finally started realizing that I was making $16 every time I dialed a number, that was a pretty good driving force for me to keep on dialing. Right. So then at this point, you know that you're making $19 per contact. You plug in how many days a week you plan on working. And I think there's 220 work days a year. And then that's going to give you the number of contacts you need to make in a day. Okay. Now this doesn't line up with this. I've got to make some changes. Because I wasn't sure if we were going to do this chart today or not. So, but you kind of get the gist of it. So this number should be the same number as this. It should be 56. Okay, then.
And let me start. So what all you're establishing is your personal baseline, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So my baseline would look different than your baseline. No problem. Why would it look different? It could look different for what reasons?
Your income could be higher than this number, which it is higher than this number. Your number of contacts is going to be lower than this number. So your amount per contact is going to be like significantly higher, but it's the same model.
Right. So somebody that's listening, they may have a different price point and average price point, and all these things will factor in. So I just wanted to emphasize here that each one of you need to know what your baseline is. This is the power of numbers. Like, I mean, Abe and I have talked about tracking numbers for years. I mean, look, and we got it from coaches like Mike Ferry and Tom Ferry and every other coach out there. Track numbers. That's what business people do. I think where the industry may have kind of failed itself is I don't think that a lot of people understand why. Like, okay, if I track the numbers, well, what do I do with the numbers? Okay, I know I need more so I could make more contacts. These are your numbers. If you make more contacts, you make more money. Yes, but there's more to the numbers. But we all have to know our baseline numbers in order to do what we're sharing with you today. So sorry for the interruption, but I just wanted to share
interruption. That's a perfect summarization. Yeah, you have to know your baseline. And again, it doesn't matter what your numbers are. Your number is your number. It doesn't matter what your skill level is. If you're making $10 per contact, it's $10. at least you know what the base is, and then you can also work on improving that number, but you know what you need to do to accomplish your financial goals. So now once you know that number, the first thing you start off with is figuring out exactly what it costs you to pay your bills, to survive. So in this particular example, we calculated $75,000 to pay all your expenses. Now you're past that survival mode. So for $75,000, based on this baseline, it's going to require 4,000 contacts for the year, which is going to mean 18 contacts per day on a 220-day work year. Okay, so now you know, if I want to pay my bills, I have to make 18 contacts every single day. If I don't, I'm going to fail. I'm going to be out of business. So I think it starts there, and you'll see that's the outside of the circle.
So let's talk about some items. What are some items that would be survival? Electric bill.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Food. So your grocery bill, gas, your house payment, your car payment,
mm-hmm.
your any other credit card payments you have. Can you think of something else besides utilities? What else?
I mean, if you've got tuition for your kids, if you've got clothing for your kids, food,
okay,
things like that, and anything to support your family. And we're not talking about anything extravagant. We're not talking about owning a boat, a second home, just to barely cover your bills, where you're not having to go into debt just to be able to survive.
And I like the word survival. We use the word survival because it's like this. It's one of those bills that if you don't pay, there's pain. Like, for instance, if you don't pay the utility bill, they cut your electricity off. That's why that's survival. Because, like, if they start cutting our water bill off and they take our car back, repossess our car, foreclose on our house, we're not surviving. So, and I'm stressing this because this is the minimum amount of money that you have to have in order for you or your loved ones, whoever you're supporting, it's the minimum amount required for survival. Because we'll talk about thrival later on, but the minimum amount is because anything less and you're not even surviving. So that's important to know that number.
Yeah, if you're not surviving, nothing else matters. So you've got to get to this point. You've got to know what your number is, and you got to know what it's going to take in activity to get to that number. So now here's what brought up this topic of this conversation, why your why dictates your what. So what most agents do, this is the point, once they get past survival, where that drive to survive, which is one of the, it's in us as human beings, we have to survive, right? We do whatever it takes to survive. So there's that drive, there's that push to make sure your bills are paid. Once we get past that, some people will have a hard time pushing themselves further. You know, I see some agents, all of a sudden they get one pending and then they disappear because then now they got a check coming in 45 days. So what's it going to take to push you past that? That's when you start to build onto this chart. So now you start saying, okay, now once I get my bills covered, what do I want? So in this particular example, we put $100,000 in savings for the year. Now, if whatever your goal is, it could be 10,000, it could be $1 million. It doesn't make a difference what it is. It's your goal. It's your number. Whatever that is, you plug in that number based on your baseline again. It's going to require 5,333 contacts over a year, which is another 24 per day if you want to have that in your bank account at the end of the year. So now we get past 18. Now we're in survival mode. Now it's how bad. And again, it's really important. Now, the second thing that you put here, it's got to be something you really want, right? Because to go from 18 contacts to 42 contacts, it's got to be something that's going to be a big why for you. That's going to be a motivator. That's going to push you to want to accomplish it. It can't be just something that doesn't mean anything to you, okay? So now you know if I make 42 contacts, I've got my bills covered and I'm putting away $100,000 at the end of the year, which is going to help me feel secure, help my families feel secure. To me, that's a driving force. You know, for you, it might not be. It might be if you're young and don't have kids or married and you want a car, maybe the next thing you put on this list is a car. But whatever is going to mean to you, that's going to push you, whatever item or thing that you want to push you, that's what you plug in next on this chart.
So what I'll add to this is like one thing that I find is very powerful in coaching is this. Like, if I'm coaching you, And let's just say that I'm coaching somebody and they have a child, and that child, they want to put that child into a private school for whatever reason. They think the environment's good, the education's good, or whatever that may be. And they know that that's going to cost them $20,000 a year. Okay. Then, so under survival, or the next thing, you have child's school, 20,000. And then you would recalculate and you'd figure out how many contacts that means. Now, I don't think we discussed this, Abe, and I know this is important, and I know you do it, and we believe in it. But let's just assume that you had a sheet of paper that you were tracking your numbers on, and that sheet had, like, all these lines, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and all the way to 100. And this is your daily contact tracking sheet. Okay. Well, then if you only track to 18, then basically you're like, okay, I survived, but I wasn't willing to make any more contacts to make sure that my child got to go to that school. That's why this becomes motivating. Right. It's because you really start to see, like, the truth will be revealed as to how much you're willing to sacrifice, on what you're willing to do in order to get what we say we want. Because I'm telling you, we quit. Too often, we quit in between survival and the next thing we want. We always show up for survival, but it's the next things that a lot of times we don't show up for. So make sure that when you're making the list, the goal list on the left column here on the chart, make sure that you break those things down. Like savings needs to be on there, but something may be actually more motivated. Like, okay, if you had to pay, there's some things that, like, may go above savings. They may be a higher priority, like a children going to a certain school may be a higher priority, or being able to have money to be able for your kid to participate in tennis lessons may actually be a higher priority than savings. So calculate what that tennis academy or tennis lessons are going to cost. Put that in there right above survival. And then every day when you walk out of the office, ask yourself, look at your chart of how many contacts you make, and ask yourself or observe what you actually really showed up for. You probably showed up for survival. The question becomes, do you show up for the next item and the next item and the next item? Because Abe's got savings, travel, and charity.
Yeah, and that's a great point, Greg. Now, in this particular instance, I came up with these again last minute. Going from 18 contacts to 42 contacts is a big jump. So it doesn't have to be that big of a jump. That number could be anything. It could be, if you wanted to put, $5,000 or $10,000 in savings, it might be only another 3 more contacts a day. So now all of a sudden you're at 18 and you really don't feel like being in the office today. You don't feel like working, and you're like, man, if I don't make these 3, I just got to make 3 more contacts. I've got my survival done and I've got my savings done. Let me just make these 3 and then I'll call it a day. Right? So it can be smaller chunks, but this is a good way to really figure out if you really want what you say you want. Because if you're stopping at 18 every single day, then you really don't care about savings when it comes to this chart. If you're stopping at 18 every single day, then you really don't care about sending your kid to a private school or whatever it may be. And then it's good to know that. Right?
It's okay, right? It's okay. It's okay. Maybe that's just not a priority for you. And that's okay. But what we find is magical is when that left column, when it's items that you really want, we notice that in the right column, people actually do it. Right. So you're surviving, you're going to all do it. You're all going to make survival. It's going to be that one thing outside of survival. And I do strongly recommend whatever it is, like make sure it's not such a big jump. Like put your $20,000 child's education as a hypothetical. Well, if it was $25,000 on my market, it wouldn't be that much. But let's just say it was $12,000. If it was $12,500, then according to this chart, because charity right there is $25,000 and only has how many contacts? 6. So then that means $12,500 would only really excuse me, really mean 3 more contacts.
3 more
So,
calls a day, yeah.
so for survival, it's 18. And then for child's education, it's only 21. It's only 3 more. So then when you're sitting there and you've just made 18, you just made your 18th contact, you've survived, and now all of a sudden you're about ready to walk out of the office, look at your numbers, and you're going to see, gosh, if I just stick around for a couple more minutes and make 3 more contacts, I'll be able to provide this. And then you get to like 21 and you notice the next item is like, man, if I just stick around for another 30 minutes, I actually get that boat that I want. Now, I've actually done this in coaching. Some of you will look at it and be like, ooh, I don't know if I'm going to do that. When you figure out this chart, go show it if you've got a spouse, a loved one, a significant other, somebody that relies on you, go show them the chart. Go show them the chart. Show them that it's 18 to survive, and it's to buy my wife a new car is only 3 contacts or 4 extra contacts, and then show that chart. Whoever your support is, wife, significant other, family member, friend, whoever it is, guess what they're going to be asking you all the time? Well, how many contacts did you make? Where did you quit today? How many contacts did you make? Because they're going to want you to keep going so that you can get what you want, because they're going to be able to enjoy that. It's like really accountable when you share this with somebody. Now, again, if I share it with my wife, she is going to be on me. Abe's probably the same. Abe and I share this. We wouldn't share this to our wives. I want to be transparent. I would not share it, but I do coach other people to do it. It's one of the areas where I probably coach somebody to do it, but I'm chicken to do it myself.
You really want some accountability and make it with them. Sit down with your wife or significant other and actually make the chart with them and say, okay, what do we want? Once we have our bills paid, what do we want? Okay. And now when you fill in, travel, you're going to put in travel with my wife, right? And so then that's going to be a little bit extra push, a little bit extra motivation to make sure you get that extra contact, and just go on from there. Keep adding what you want next. Like on this chart, I put travel. So 7 more contacts. If I make 49 contacts a day, I'm surviving, I'm saving, and I'm traveling. Okay. And then, again, each chart's going to be different. You put what you want on there, but you want something. This way, when you're in the office and you're about to call it quit, because we've all been there. We're all going to have those days where we don't feel like doing it. We need that little extra push, and that's going to push you from this level to this level to that level, and then you're going to hit your goal. You hit the goal every single day. You got everything that you possibly want.
Yeah, and that little circle there, that's really the bullseye. It's like, as you keep advancing and making the appropriate number of contacts, you actually get closer and closer to the bullseye, which is the ultimate goal, is where we get everything we want. So
now, Bill Miller had a question, what do you consider a contact?
Mm-hmm.
So Bill, that doesn't even matter in this instance, right? It's whatever you consider a contact, because that's what's going to determine your baseline. Now, for me, if you ask me what I call a contact, is anybody that I have a real estate conversation with, or I even begin to have a real estate conversation with. If I tell you, hey, Bill, this is Abe with Century 21, and you hang up on me, that's a contact, because you knew I was a real estate agent and you chose not to have a conversation. So for me, it's any attempt or any conversation regarding real estate, I call it contact. But you can have your own definition. As long as that stays consistent, then you have a baseline, and then you can see either progress or regress based on that baseline if you keep it consistent. So it's whatever you feel like is a contact.
Yeah, and that's an excellent answer, Nate. I think Nate would, I see he chimed in, and yes, I call a contact a live conversation with a decision-making adult. Okay, so that would not necessarily be a text, but I support everything Abe just said. Bill, if you have used like workflows with Real Geeks and things that we talk about a lot, if you're using that and you're kind of like, and you're counting those as conversations, as contacts, then as long as you're consistent in the way you're accounting, all the numbers will work out. So your numbers will look different, because if you're counting contacts, then or text as contacts, assuming that you're counting, they respond to the text, you count it as a contact. If you did that, your dollar earned per contact would be a little bit lower because the quality of the contact is a little bit lower, right? And the quantity of the contacts would be much higher because you could do so many of those text contacts. So the numbers would still play out, and as long as you're consistent in the way that you're reporting, the chart works. Basically, I just repeated what you said, Abe.
Yeah, so that's pretty much it. Anything else you want to add, Greg?
I would just say back to what I mentioned a moment ago, that like, and Abe, here's what I think we should do from here. I think we should take this chart. We should have our graphic designer kind of like pretty it up a little bit. And then let's just say that this is technically the top 50% of a regular sized piece of paper. The bottom 50% be a count and like a numbers tracking, and it counts to 100. And then this becomes a visual that people could actually, we could upload it to Real Estate Sales Solutions. They could then download it anytime they want, anybody that wants a copy, and they could use this as their numbers tracking sheet. And it's a visual, so they get to connect, like, okay, why you're actually doing this activity. Like, if you do this activity, this is what you get out of it. And I think when we kind of like have a deeper connection to like the benefits of the hard work, and we constantly see that, then those days that we're feeling a little bit lazy and we want to quit, maybe this will be something that keeps them going. How about we'll send it to Daniel. What do you think about that?
I like that. I think that's a great idea. As a matter of fact, I'm going to post a number on here. Anybody that wants this, once we get it done, just text us your email address to that number.
Okay.
And then we'll send it, and you can use that as your daily tracker. So you've got the motivation and drive up top, and then you can track your numbers right below it.
Yeah. Okay. I like that. And I know that we didn't plan to do this, but for those of you that are listening, I want to share with you, Abe and I started doing these coaching calls live on this Facebook page. We won't be doing these forever. As one of the things that we wanted to do is really introduce ourselves and make sure you understand and hopefully see that we're extremely authentic and real in the way that we approach the business and communicate coaching out there to the community. But keep your eyes open, because Abe and I are going to be doing a coaching program, and we're going to be inviting people to join us. And it's going to be coaching like this all through the year, group coaching just like this. So I don't have anything to give you right this second, but I just want you to know. You could also, at any point, just direct message us. We can tell you a little bit more. It's going to be everything we did today and a bunch more, and it's just going to be about building a business. Abe, I think this is great. I look forward to having Daniel complete that chart, that document. Text. What do they need to text? Just text anything.
Their email address, and we can email it to them.
Okay, text your email address, and we'll email it out to you. And at some other time, maybe we put it somewhere, and maybe we post it on here at some point as another way that you can access it, where you can just download it. All right, man, that was awesome. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. If I see any questions pop up after the live, we monitor the Facebook page quite a bit, so we'll make sure that we answer those.
Enjoy. Right. Thank you all for watching.
All right, bye everybody.
Bye.